now I think we do have our good friend and contributor Super Mario with us on the show. Mario, is that you?
That's me, brother. Good morning. How you doing?
Thank you for coming out of your coffin to help us report this story, man.
Well, no problem. When I saw the information that you sent me, I thought to myself, well, I'm so glad this is finally, the information is finally getting out, because for many years, for the last 2-3 years that we've been reporting this, we've been kind of the silent tree in the forest.
Yeah.
But that's great. I see that the story it's gotten out to some blogs and even some mainstream or so-called mainstream news websites. But yeah, Vicente Zambada was arrested in 2008 and extradited to the U.S. and he's been for those that don't know, he's the nephew of El Chapo's partner, Mario Zambada, and he was arrested in 2008 and extradited to Chicago, where he's been in federal court for years, and he's been telling the judge that, look, I had the DEA's blessing for the last 3-4 years when I was operating in Mexico. And he's been talking about Fast and Furious for a long time.
You actually reported on this, what was it, 6-8 months, a year ago? And you reported this very story. And now, but the reason it's news, it's
the same. Yeah, right. The same information. They were cutting deals to get guns in to the Sinaloa cartel, which is the CIA's favorite cartel. And I can explain that later on. But in exchange, they would smuggle the drugs, and they would be able to fight Los Zetas, and because Los Zetas are starting to move into the state of Sinaloa and the neighboring state of Durango. They're fighting them off right there, and actually the Gulf cartel is helping them out. They're allies. Sinaloa and the Gulf are allies.
Okay, so I messed that part up. My bad.
The Los Zetas used to be part of the Gulf cartel. They broke away. It's also another long story.
Yeah.
But they used to be the same. But anyhow, they would receive the weapons so they could fight Los Zetas in Durango and other parts of the country, like Veracruz. They're now using the death squad known as Los Matazetas, the killers of Zetas, out of the state of Jalisco, the city of Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta, which is the CIA's capital in Mexico. And you can read the book Our Man in Mexico by Washington Times journalist Jefferson Marley, and explains in detail how it all started. But basically these guys, headed by Nacho Coronel, the guy that got caught smuggling cocaine for the CIA in Yucatan in 2007, they were the same guys that were dealing drugs and smuggling drugs for the CIA in Central America during Iran-Contra. It's the same people.
And what, this is what was kind of leaking out into I call it the mainstream media. I know they think that they're still the alternative media, but the Blaze, I believe there was a posting on the Drudge Report leading back to this, and some of the Republican sites, very big Republican PAC sites, were sending us this story in the email because it's anti-Obama. Until you read it, it's actually anti-Bush and Obama, if it's anti-anything, because all these guys have been caught up. This isn't just the Obama administration, which I know might get out into the mainstream media. This was the Bush administration, which we've been saying all along. And what Jesus Vicente Zambada is saying is, quote, the Sinaloa cartel was allegedly permitted to traffic massive amounts of drugs across the U.S. border from 2004, do the math, to 2009 during both Fast and Furious, and it's still happening, by the way, during Fast and Furious and the Bush-era gun-running operations, as long as they kept giving them intelligence. They protected them, they helped them, they gave them weapons, and they let them get preferred drugs across the border. I mean, this is Iran-Contra. This is bigger almost than Iran-Contra.
It is. It's basically the same thing. It's a continuation of Iran-Contra. It actually it was taking place in the 90s too, and early 2000s. It's never been, it's never stopped really. This time it kind of got some publicity because the left is trying to demonize the Second Amendment, as some talk show hosts are stating out there. But it's more than just that. It's more than just demonizing the Second Amendment. It's an agenda to provide weapons for the CIA's favorite cartel, Sinaloa, in order to fight off Los Zetas and others, like the Juarez cartel. Juarez is there's a big war going on between Sinaloa and Juarez because it's the biggest, essentially the biggest drug smuggling route into the United States. It's the biggest city in the north, and they're trying to get full control of it.
You play along with us, and you get immunity. We let your drugs get over the border, so you can make billions of dollars. We want our cut, by the way, because these guys. This is not going to be in this story, but we look at Bush Sr., Clinton, his business partner, in Mena, Arkansas, which was a drug refinery and a portal to ship to all points in North America. They were involved in that, and you can go look up Bush, Clinton, Barry Seal, and you guys can find all that information. It's really not that hard to find.
Right,
yeah.
It's the same people that initially brought crack cocaine in the 80s,
Yeah.
and there was a big story with Freeway Rick and how they used them to distribute CIA's crack cocaine. That was like a main story. It just kind of went away after a while. But,
in Dark Alliance, the book, and but the point I want to make is that they're getting their cut. This isn't just about. This is how this thing is going to be covered up, and I want to stop that cover up with you today, Super Mario. Is that we were just trying to catch these other guys. We were just trying to, neutralize the PLO. That's why we invented Hamas. We were just trying to go after and get the Russians out of Afghanistan for the oil. That's why we invented and funded the Mujahideen. I mean, are we going to hear that story? Because the story goes on from here. It's not in this version of the story, but they're getting their cut. The banks are getting money and propped up for money laundering. Money is going right into the pockets, not to mention because we have all these drugs and guns and everything right on our border, the DEA and the drug czar and the drug war gets funded and everybody cashes in on that, but they get literal profits off of every bag, every ounce of cocaine, heroin, and a bag of marijuana coming over the border. There's a cut involved here.
It's like a vicious circle. Everybody gets a cut. No matter where you go and look into it, whether there's defense contracts for the Mexican military, security contracts, weapons, armor vehicles. It's no matter what perspective, what aspect of the vicious circle you look into. The banks, law enforcement, trained. As I reported, a year ago, they're building training bases for law enforcement and more prisons. It's everywhere, man. It's
so
horrific.
their excuse is A, incompetence. We've heard that before, and B, we couldn't fight. We couldn't beat them, so we joined them. We couldn't. This is what they say. They couldn't fight the drug traffickers, so instead they tried to manage the drug trade.
That's exactly right, and the way they did that is after Iran-Contra, the same guys that smuggled the drugs in the military C-140s, C-130s from Central America to the U.S., Arkansas and other places, they moved back to Mexico, and the CIA cut a deal telling the Mexican government to leave them alone, and they would be the CIA's little favorite cartel. They were essentially CIA operatives all along. And yes, they've been caught smuggling cocaine in Yucatan. 2 aircraft that were discovered. There were CIA rendition aircraft. Can you imagine having access to a CIA rendition aircraft so you can, load it full of cocaine? But it was this guy, Nacho Coronel, and now the Sinaloa cartel is really being ran not by El Chapo. El Chapo's just a figurehead. It's being ran by his nephew, Jose Angel Carrasco Coronel, and El Chapo is also married to Nacho Coronel's niece, Emma Coronel, which she gave birth to to twins in Southern California last year, a few months ago actually, December I think. And you one would think, I mean, with all this technology, they're supposed to be monitoring us and listening to conversations and tracking us, and they were not able to follow her and find this boogeyman, Chapo Guzman. It all just doesn't make any sense, and it's because the guy has been under DEA protection for years.
We had another shooting in Texas yesterday. Today at a Chicago Islamic school was targeted with some homemade explosive. I haven't even gotten to reporting that. Also yesterday,
I know.
we reported that the DHS is buying massive explosive nitrates and then getting rid of the history of all of that. And then we hear this on top of it. I mean, how could we believe anything anymore that the government says, the media says? Well, we got caught with our hand in the Coke jar, but we're really just trying to help you.
Right. A lot of distraction stories out there. I'm surprised that this Vinny Zambada's trial lasted this long, and now I was reading an article this morning that they're going to go into closed door sessions. Kind of like what they did with Ociel Cardenas, the leader of the Gulf Cartel, when they arrested him in 2003. They went to closed door sessions because, quote, they didn't want to harm or risk internal sources within the drug trade organizations, meaning that they have informants all over the place.
Well, part of the problem is getting your hands. It's one thing to say, here are all the witnesses, this is what was happening, this is what's been going on all along. It's another thing to have the documents, the files, the recordings, the notes, additional forms of evidence, which Zambada's lawyer is trying to get his hands on right now, which support these claims that federal agents personally assured Zambada and others that they would not be arrested, that the agents knew with the prior cooperation, that they just wanted to continue receiving the information, that the arrangements with him had been approved at the highest levels of the United States government. Because even if this does track, they'll claim ignorance. I didn't know that was going on beneath me at the Justice Department and at all the alphabet agencies, would say Obama or Bush. Or they would claim executive privilege, again, as we've already seen. Or there would be a good excuse for it. Divide and conquer. We were just using... They don't ever do that, right? They do it to us all the time. They were just doing divide and conquer here. They figure they'll peel off one guy, and then once they're done and they've taken out the competition, then they'll go out to Sinaloa and they'll take them out, and this was their big master plan, and it was just incompetence. But where's the information, and will people believe Zambada and people like him that come out, and these whistleblowers and people that come out and say all of this? Will they just believe their word, their testimony, or do we have to somehow subpoena and get documents from the government, which I doubt even exist, man? I think it's going to be hard to find all that.
And if they did exist, you wouldn't know where to go to find them, because this thing is so secret. We're going to see
a lot of dead people. I don't know how long this guy's going to live. It's amazing he's still alive right now, Zambada. We're going to start seeing a lot of people end up dead. Right now, because this thing is starting to come apart. This is again the Iran-Contra of the second Bush. Does it really surprise us that the first Bush is Iran-Contra, the second Bush is Iran-Contra-ish with this new thing? And let's also keep in mind that a lot of the money that comes off of this goes into black budget operations that wouldn't be approved by you, the people, or Congress, or anybody else. This is how they get the money for some of this stuff they're not supposed to be doing, which is what Iran-Contra was all about. But
and to quote Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, they wouldn't legalize drugs because, quote, there's too much money involved. That's what she said. Remember that?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
that's the money she's talking about.
So where's the accountability then on this? How do we make sure we get accountability? The head should roll here.
They sure they should. Absolutely, you're right. To shift, gears here, I wanted to also give you an update with what's going on the Mexican side of the border. El Chapo, the figurehead leader of the Sinaloa cartel, his cousin was arrested in Spain just a few days ago, and one of his associates by the name of Celaya, Celaya Valenzuela, his Facebook page had pictures with the president-elect of Mexico, Enrique Peña Nieto, and it is. I'm reading the story right now, and it looks like the guy was actually running for Congress in one of the states down there. So they're just neat.
It's pervasive.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at a lot of presidents, and you'll go to a fundraiser or something, and you'll see them taking smiley, happy pictures with known drug dealers. It's not
right.
This isn't anything new, I guess, and maybe people are just bored. This is why the story isn't so big. It's like, oh yeah, yan, we all know that the government smuggles
right.
drugs. I mean, years ago when we reported that, it was it was shocking to people. But I think now it's almost like people are getting kind of desensitized. Yeah, we know all about that. Okay, big deal. But it is a big deal because we're getting closer and closer to taking out these leaders in our government that are responsible for this. It's coming out more and more. It's becoming more and more obvious, and it's something that's harder and harder for them to contain.
Absolutely. And there was also another incident, a couple other incidents last week in Guadalajara. The alleged leader of Los Matacetas, the death squad that is cleaning house in several states, Veracruz, San Luis, and others, killing Los Zetas. Their leader was arrested, and the same day there was a shootout in a wealthy area in Mexico City where a businessman was killed, and they caught some foreign intelligence agents in a safe house, and that's being, it's being covered up. There's almost no mention in the media about that. There was some foreigners, including at least one Israeli, in a stash house in Mexico City that was arrested, and they actually tried to kill the cops. And there was only one news source called Millennial, the newspaper down there, that reported the story, and they interviewed some of the eyewitnesses there in the block, the same area where the stash house was, and they said, yeah, there's always some foreigners going in, and they don't look like regular drug dealers. They look more like military, like special forces guys going in there. I mean, there's so much stuff going on.
We're helping the Sinaloa. We're helping the Sinaloa and their friends fight the Los Zetas. But the Los Zetas were trained by the police and trained at the School of the Americas. So we train these guys who we're now fighting, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. I feel like I'm pulling my hair out, Mario, because I'm just repeating myself. It's the Mujahideen one day. It's the MEK in Iran the next day. It's the Al Qaeda in Syria that we're backing another day. We're just openly assassinating leaders, and we're sponsoring this. It is state-sponsored terror by the West and their allies. And I hate to say this. I'm sorry. I'm not anti-American. I'm just telling the truth here. So it is kind of redundant as we're constantly reporting all the bad guys are connected right to our government and the elites, constantly, over and over and over again. Here comes the story. What does that matter to anybody? Apparently not too much, but we have to report it.
Right. We will continue to report it, especially when there's a big development like this, because it needs to be reported, and they need to expose these guys. I hope the activists out there continue to get documents, some FOIA requests.
Yeah.
To get some of those court documents from Vinny Zambada in Chicago and see what else he's telling us, because it's like a rabbit hole, just going deeper and deeper.
They're going to shut this thing tighter than the James Holmes trial.
Sure.
That's another one.
Well, they already have the guy in isolation. He's been complaining for many months that he wants to get out, but they have him in isolation. So I think most of the legwork is being done by his lawyer.
Yeah, the shoe bomber, the underwear bomber, the Batman shooter. I mean, all of this, the Tucson shooter, all of it just wrapped as tight in a box as you possibly can, so we don't get to hear anything these people are saying or what might be their defense. And that doesn't sound very constitutional or American to me, Mario.
No, it sure doesn't, and it's a big coincidence too. You know, all these guys end up in some basement, some supermax prison where no one can talk to them. You know, if you remember McVeigh and others, the same thing. No one had access except for the MK Ultra psychologists.
Yeah. Well, this isn't a conspiracy. I mean, this is a conspiracy. It's not a theory. It's all documented. So when you see your neighbors or one of your little family members or whatever get busted for a joint and, you know, do 2 years in prison or something for that, I want you to remember what we've reported here today. That's all.
Exactly.
What else you want to add before I let you go? And I thank you again for coming out of retirement briefly here to someday you got to come on and tell your story about, you know,
absolutely.
who you are and what you've done, because I think it actually adds a lot of weight to what you report. But for now, we'll just have you folks trust us for a minute. Anything else you want to add to this before I move and let you go?
No, brother. That's all I got right now. You know, it didn't give me enough time to prepare, man. But you know, I just thought I'd weigh in, you know, and help you break down this thing for now. And I'll continue to dig into those stories in Mexico with the intelligence agents in Mexico City and see if I can put something together for that.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for being with us today, and Godspeed. Best to you and your family, Mario. I miss you. Now I'm in a whole different state. But you were with me in Rhode Island. You were with me in Texas. I think it's time for you to come out to Georgia. All right, buddy?
I don't know about that, man. I lived in South Carolina for 5 years, and I don't think I'm going back to the East Coast again.
All right, man. Hey, thanks. Best to you, Mario. We'll talk to you real soon. And hit me off air if you got any more to add to this, and we'll put it up on the site.
Absolutely.
Okay? Thanks.
Absolutely. Take care, brother.
All right. Mario I met when I was on the radio in Rhode Island, and he was a listener of the show and just created the first website we ever had, jackblood.com, which he did such a fantastic job. It was one of the top websites out there, not just doing what we do, but anything doing news at around 30 to 40,000 hits a day. And of course, I threw it all away. It's how I roll. What do you guys think of that, man? This is just right in your face now. I know we all knew this, and we read, you know, Dark Alliance, or we heard, you know, hopefully you read Powder Burns, and you read what Celi Castillo had said, the whistleblower who was just thrown in prison. What? For straw purchases, for selling a gun without a license set up by the BATFE, who was giving guns to the very people that Celi Castillo was exposing. Do you see? Oh, it just drives me crazy. Do you see how this thing comes back and bites you in the ass? You see how they're using this against you? Do you see how the more things change, the more they stay the same? Do you see how yes, we can becomes because we can? Do you see how there's no difference between Romney and Obama and anyone else? Do you see how if we keep doing the same things over and over again, we're going to keep getting the same results? Do you see how there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it's fading, it's closing? Do you see how technology has managed to keep all of us quiet for the most part? Yes, it's a double-edged sword. Do you see how important it is for you to get up to the top of your rooftops and yell, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore? Do you see how this needs to be exposed to the light of day? These cockroaches that do the very things they tell you not to do and put you in prison and your family and ruin your lives for, and they profit and become billionaire kings and queens in this feudal system. Do you see how important it is to expose this? And then at the end of the day, do you see how important it is to let this roll off your back and go get some time with your family and forget about it for just a few minutes so it doesn't completely take you over and ruin you? Yes, the truth is here. We know the truth. We have the truth. Here's the truth. plain as day. You can see it. You can hold it in your hand. It's a real thing. It's not confusing. That's what I gotta say on that.